angles. So first we're going to classify these angles, and we're going to talk about how to name them. So if you're looking at an angle, it's 3 points and 2 segments or 2 lines that meet at a common point, okay? And so that point they meet at, for example, right here where they meet, it's called the vertex, okay? And so when you're naming an angle, the vertex has to be in the middle because you're talking about describing how the angle goes. So if I were to name it BCD, so I could say angle BCD, that would work. Or I could also say angle DCB and go the other way, DCB. Either way, you notice that C ends up in the middle when I'm naming it, okay? Because that's the vertex. The vertex always has to be that middle point. All right, so when I'm classifying these angles, if it is over 90 degrees, which this one is, this is called an obtuse angle. So this one's obtuse because it's over 90 degrees. Our next one, our EGF, its measure, that's what that M stands for, is 41.79, so that makes it an acute angle, okay, because it's under 90 degrees. Our next one, it may just look like a flat, straight line, or technically a segment, and it measures 180 degrees, and you might think, well, this is not an angle, it's just a line. But it's actually called a straight angle, okay? So a straight angle is exactly 180 degrees. It's good to remember that a straight line or a straight angle is 180 degrees because that'll be helpful later. And our last one, HIJ, measures 90 degrees, so that makes this a right angle. And right angles are always 90 degrees, exactly 90 degrees. And usually they will tell you this because they don't want you guessing it's a right angle because maybe it's slightly off. Usually they'll tell you this by putting a little box right there in the corner around the vertex. Okay, so those are our 4 types of angles. All right, so we have this one right here, and you notice LAK is a nice straight angle there. And they tell us that LAM is 43 degrees. And then they're wondering, what is MAK, this question mark right here? So like I said, LAK, which is this lovely straight line along here, has to measure 180 degrees. So that means that these 2 angles, 43 and my unknown, have to add up to 180 degrees altogether. So that's how we're going to do this one. If I take away 43, that tells me my mystery angle is 137 degrees. Okay. So this has a name when you have 2 angles or more than 2 angles really that add up to 180 degrees. Those are called supplementary angles. Supplementary angles. So again, like I said, supplementary angles, they add up to 180 degrees. Now remember, this has to be 2 or more angles. Just a straight line is not a supplementary angle. It's supplementary angles, plural, so it has to be more than 1. Okay? So those are supplementary angles. Our next one here, you notice we have a right angle that's split in 2. So it's telling us that KLO is 51.8 degrees, and we're looking for this OLN angle right here. But we know that the 2 of them together have to add up to 90 degrees because we see that little box in the corner. So I know that 51.8 plus my unknown has to equal 90 altogether. So again, I'm just taking that away to figure out what it has to be. So in this case, X is going to be 38.2 degrees. Okay, so just like the other ones were called supplementary angles, this also has a name. These are called complementary angles. Complementary angles. And so those are angles, 2 or more angles that add up to 90 degrees. So add up to 90 degrees. Okay. So let's talk some more about complementary and supplementary angles. All right, so like I said, complementary is 90 degrees, so add up to 90. And again, it has to be 2 or more angles. If you just have a right angle, it's not a single complementary angle. It has to be 2 or more. And then supplementary, add up to 180. Now, this doesn't seem that hard, but the problem people have is usually they get them mixed up, okay? Because it's easy to get mixed up. They sound very similar. They have the same ending, the lamentary part. So the easiest way I have to remember them, and you can come up with it whatever way you want is, but I remember because C comes first in the alphabet, and 90 comes before C does, okay? Or sorry, before 180 does. S is second, and 180 is the bigger number, okay? So I remember it that way. You can remember it however you want, so if you want to come up with your own system. I've heard all kinds of funny ones that people have come up with about complementary and supplementary things, but that's the easiest way I've remembered them when I was younger. All right, so if it tells you, number one, the measure of an angle ABC is 45 degrees, what is its complement? Well, complement, like we said, was 90. So what would add to 45 to equal 90? Another 45, okay? So 45 plus 45 would have given us the 90, so that makes 45 our answer, okay? Go ahead and try the next three on your own and then hit play to check your answers to see how you're doing. All right, so this one's supplement, so it has to add up to 180. 180 minus 112.7. That's 67.3 degrees for that one. Next one, complement. Keep our alternating colors going. So that's going to be 90. So if I subtract, I get 0.2555. So 55.25 degrees. And don't forget your little degree sign. I mean, this is a unit. It's a measurement of the angle. So you should be using a degree sign. Finally, supplement, it's 180. 3.2. So this is going to be a pretty big angle. So 176.8 degrees for that final one, okay? All right, so this one's more a little algebraic because it doesn't actually give us many numbers. So let's look at this. So it says the measure of one angle is twice the measure of its supplement. Find the two angles. So we have two missing angles. So we'll call them angle 1 and angle 2. Doesn't really matter which is which. Just have two angles. I don't know what either of them is. All right. What I do know is the measure of one angle is twice the measure of its supplement. Okay, that gives me a lot of information. So first of all, supplement, I know they add up to 180. Okay, so the two angles have to equal 180 altogether. And it says one angle is twice the measure of the other angle. So let's say I made angle 1 just my x. One of them has to just be x. The other angle is twice that. So how do I write that? 2x. Okay, so I have one angle and then the other one is twice the first one. And now, like I said, those two angles have to equal 180 when you add them up. Okay, so that's setting up. It's using the twice the measure to come up with this part, and it's using the fact that it says supplement to come up with my equation, that the two angles add up to 180. And then I'll have to do a solve. So to solve this, x plus 2x is actually 3x altogether. And if I do my reciprocal, I get that x is 60. So it asks, what are the two angles? So if x is 60, that means this first angle is 60 degrees. That means the second angle is twice that, 120 degrees. If I check my work, that makes sense because these two numbers add up to 180, which is supplementary to each other. So it's correct. Okay, so let's try some more of these. The key factors for this is, remember, one of your angles is going to be x. It doesn't really matter which is which. So I usually just always make angle 1x. The second angle you're going to get because it's going to tell you some information in the problem. And then you're going to set up your equation because it's going to tell you either they're supplementary or complementary. Okay, so they're adding up to equal either 180 or 90. Obviously, don't get that mixed up because then you'll get that wrong. All right, so let's try another one. All right, so this one's very similar, but it went ahead and gave you the two angles. So if you have an idea of what to do, go ahead and pause it and try this on your own. If you're not sure, you can follow along with me. So looking at this, we have this nice straight line along here. So I know these two angles add up to 180. So I'm just going to write them out. I don't have to come up with what they are. I already know what they are. They're that, and they're that, and all together they equal 180. Okay. So I'm going to combine some like terms. So I got 4x and x is 5x. I got negative 30 and positive 10 would be a negative 20. And then add the opposite. And then if I do reciprocal, I get that x is 40, okay? So it says find the measure of the two angles to the right. Well, neither of them is just x, so I'm just going to have to use that 40 to figure it out. So this one on the right is x plus 10, so that means that this angle is 50 degrees. And then I can either go, okay, well, if that's 50 and they add up to 180, that means this has to be 130. Or you can also use it to check your work. 4 times 40 is 160, minus 30 is, in fact, 130, okay? So we know we got the right answer because we checked it 2 different ways, okay? So these ones are a little bit easier because you don't have to come up with angle 1 and angle 2. They went ahead and gave them to you. You just had to notice that it was along a straight line, so that's why it adds up to 180, the 2 angles. Angle 1 and angle 2 add up to 180, okay? All right, go ahead and pause it. Try this one on your own, and then hit play to check your work. So this one is another one where we have to come up with our 2 angles. We got angle 1 and angle 2. And like I said, I just go ahead and make angle 1 x. It doesn't really matter which is which because it doesn't specify which angle is which. And it says the measure of one angle is 24 degrees greater than the measure of its complement. So complement means they're adding up to 90 this time. So 24 degrees greater. Greater means I'm adding, right? 24 degrees greater than the original angle. So my original angle x and then 24 more than my original angle. Like I said, they're complementary, so if I add these up, they're going to equal 90 this time. So I have 24 and now I have 2 x's equals 90. Go ahead and start solving my problem. And when I do my reciprocal, I get that x is 33. So remember, that's only telling me the first angle. So that makes my first angle is 33 degrees. And my second one is 24 more. So that would make that 57 degrees. And to double check, add those up, and they do add up to 90, which means they are complementary. So it's a good way to check your work. All right, so go ahead and try this one on your own and then hit play to check your work. One thing I should point out that should be here that you wouldn't really be able to do the problem without, you probably would assume this, but there should be a little right angle marker there. So go ahead and pause it, try this one on your own, and then hit play when you want to check your work. All right, so we know they add up to 90, so I'm just going to add them up. 2 angles add up to 90. And then go ahead and do it out. Simplify your work. Then start adding the opposite. Alright, so you end up with x is 17. So remember, that's not either the angles. This one is 2x, so double 17 is 34 degrees. You could subtract from 90 to get the 56, but it's also a good idea to use this to double check that 3 times 17 is what? 51, and 51 plus 5 is 56. So it's a double check to make sure your 2 angles are right and all your work you did was correct. All right, final one. It says find the measure of the 2 angles. This should say the measure of the 3 angles, because there are 3 different angles, okay? So go ahead and pause it, try this one on your own, and then hit play to check your work. All right, so all 3 angles are along a straight line, so they're going to add up to 180. I'm going to go ahead and, instead of writing it all out, just go ahead and combine it. So 5x, 5x, and 5x is 15x. Plus 3 and 12 is also 15. So equals 180 altogether. Like I said, it's along a straight line. All right, so this is 165 equals 15x. And when I do this, I get x equals 11. So I got to plug this in. So 5 times x, so this is 55. This is 55 plus 3, right? There's a plus sign, there you go. So it's 58. And 55 plus 12, 67. It's a good idea to double check your work and add all these together to make sure that it does in fact equal 180, which it does, so we are correct.